everyone. This is Dr. Jennifer Gardella, who had a post-it note to make sure I hit the record button. That's what I was just taking off. I am a social media consultant. I work out of my home in Doylestown, Pennsylvania. And as many of you know, I am also I really advocate for peaceful divorce in the world. And as COVID has hit our area and families are locked in together, I have been very concerned about some of the families, parents specifically, that are in close quarters, the pressure cooker as I like to call it, and are wondering what the heck they can do about the divorce process. So I've asked one of my good friends, Misty Avallone, an attorney with the Kingston Law Group right outside of Princeton, to come on and talk to us very specifically about exactly what the New Jersey divorce process can look like right now, and also what you can be doing as a couple in your home or even as an individual to start the process. Misty, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, Jennifer. Thank you for having me. My name is Misty Avallone, and I'm an attorney at Kingston Law Group, and I've been practicing for about 8 years. And I get to practice in the wonderful little town of Kingston, right outside of Princeton. And I've been practicing with Hannon my entire legal career, and I was actually his paralegal for a year before going to law school. So I got to know a lot about the family law field, and people ask me why I like it. I joke that it makes my family look normal, but for whatever reason, I took a liking to it when I was a paralegal for a year before going to school, and came back and decided that's what I wanted to focus my practice on.
Great. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of pieces of family law and divorce law that really help a lot of couples and a lot of children. And it's something that you guys really do advocate in your office. You know, there's a family that is where the parents are separating, but the children always need to remember and be reminded by the adults in the room that they forever have a family and that family doesn't break up.
Absolutely.
So as you are now walking through these days, adjusting not only to working in your home, out of your house, and also with all of the changes in the courts, why don't you give us just a little summary of what a potential client could expect, let's start with the call. So they know that they're getting divorced. Either they are just about to start the process anyway and COVID hit, or they've decided to start the process now that they are cooped up with their significant other and know that it finally has to end. So what does that first phone call look like?
So luckily, we have a great paralegal in our office. Her name's Kristen. She will take the phone call and take any of the basic intake information. We like to send a pretty thorough intake form to our potential clients because it gets a lot of the basic information out of the way so that we can focus on what the real issues are during the consult.
Sure.
And we can actually give some advice during that consult, see where the clients are. And right now, even though we're not doing those in person, we can do them over the phone, which we've always been able to do, especially if people were out of state. Right now I have a client he's in the US Navy and he's stationed in Italy, and he and I had a phone consult and we're already working on an MSA together. And so, right now that process looks pretty much the same from the start if we're not filing immediately. If the parties want to do something more amicable, we call it, Hannon and I are both collaboratively trained. And if clients are amicable and they want to, we will start the process with a phone call, getting basic information, their financial information, how many kids they have, their ages, and kind of what's going on, and whether or not they're actually looking to reconcile at any point, or if they're definitely going for a divorce. I will say that Hannah and I are very big on if they think that they can save their marriage, we will send them to a therapist who may be able to help them. And I will say probably a little bit more than half the time they come back 6 or 12 months later and say, I'm in a better place, but I still want the divorce. And that's okay. And we work with them that way. And I think that actually helps the process. So the process will start with a phone call from Kristen, and then we do a consult, and I talk through all of the major issues and what the process will look like. And I walk them through that, whether it's, let's start doing a settlement agreement first and try to work this out amicably, or we need to file a divorce complaint right away and kind of hit the ground running with court requirements.
Great. So as your potential clients are sitting out there listening to this, what are some things that they can be doing as they're now in their homes, dare I say, trapped together, as far as their financials are concerned? So we all know that individuals can save a tremendous amount of money if they are agreeable and reasonable during the divorce process. There's no reason to have your day in court unless you want to spend $50,000 on your attorneys. But as they're looking over their major assets, retirement accounts, pensions, homes, what can they be talking about during this time to make it easier when they actually hit the ground running with you?
So importantly is whether or not, they have stable income right now, because a lot of people are concerned about their jobs and whether or
Okay.
not they're going to have a stable income. So whether or not they know about that, they can still give us a call and talk about the process, and we can talk about ways to help them save money. And they want to do that anyway if they have a stable income. But if they still have financial concerns, we can definitely talk them through that and how we can help. And they can gather their tax returns from last year, the last 2 years too, if we may need those. Their three most recent pay stubs we always need, and any of their retirement assets, whether it's brokerage accounts, 401ks, IRAs, pensions. If they start gathering that information, it will save us some time and some questions down the road. We'll already be able to start filling in some blanks, which is great. And right now, because rates are lower than they were a year ago, because of everything going on, it might be a good time for them to refinance. If they're thinking about that, we have to talk through that, because both parties have to be on board, or they already have to have some sort of agreement about what they're going to do with refinancing that mortgage if they're going to get divorced, because they might just sell it. But right now, no one knows how long houses are going to sit on the market. So it might be better if one of the parties stays in the house. They also might be considering a nesting agreement if they have kids and they want the kids to stay in the house. So before anyone pulls the plug on any major financial decisions, we want to talk to them and be able to walk them through kind of the repercussions and everything of those decisions.
Yeah, you bring up a good point that Hannon and I actually talked about this morning, which is nesting. As you know, my ex-husband and I nested our children for about 5 years when we first got divorced. And we wrote our own divorce, which I never, ever, ever recommend, because what happened with the nesting agreement was suddenly when it wasn't working or there was a major repair, since we didn't have that counsel setting it up, we had no plan for it long term. So I can't stress enough to people, you may be sitting there in your homes thinking that this is a great time to write your own divorce, and it is the actual worst time for you to ever write your own divorce. I had a lot of peace with my ex, but it was certainly when it was time to file the quadros and, like I said, work out details of the nesting situation, it was a disaster. And thank God we had that peace, because we absolutely needed a friendship to get through what we had messed up.
Well, you bring up an excellent point. One, you're probably, one in a million who can do that and also nest for 5 years. That's an incredible length of time. Most people try it for 6 to 12 months. Um, that's amazing. And obviously you were both focused on your children, which is awesome. But even so, I don't want to, deter anyone from coming up with their own quote unquote settlement agreement. I would say that, just put the major points in that and always take it to an attorney, have it reviewed, because we want to explain to you what's missing, what you don't even know that you need in there, and some things to think about based on the language that you put in there. And we can put it into a settlement agreement for parties, and they will take a huge chunk of time and save a huge chunk of money by kind of fleshing it out with the other party beforehand, if they're amicable. This is
Right.
not something you would bring up with someone if you're fighting every day, or you're not talking at all because you can't stand each other. Those are some things that you want to probably go out to your car and call us on the phone and say, I need a consult and this is what's going on. I wouldn't recommend trying to start any World War III arguments at your kitchen table while you're stuck in the house together.
Yeah, and I think that that's a great point, the confidentiality that you guys can definitely provide to your clients and potential clients now when they call, because there's eyes on everybody in small quarters
Right.
or big quarters, actually. So going out to your car, going for a drive, hiding upstairs in the master bedroom closet, that's actually where I do my client calls now sometimes, because there's no quiet in our house. What before we go, because we are going to try, we're trying to break these into smaller segments
Mhm.
so that it's easier for people to digest. Why don't you talk a little bit about family budgets? What kind of budgets do you need people to be reasonable about during the process? And also, what can they do now to start to gather that information?
So they can start looking at their bank statements, organizing those. They can either organize them in a Google Drive or a Dropbox, anything like that. And they need to look at their monthly finances for the past year. We can send them either during the first consult or after they sign a retainer with us. We usually send them a blank case information statement so that we can get all of their monthly expenses. And we usually ask them to take the last 12 months, figure out what they spent, divide it over that 12 months. And I like to say, because there's two columns on a CIS, I like them to try to anticipate the right-hand column, which is supposed to be the current column versus the joint column.
Okay.
But if they have an idea of where they may live, and some people do already because they've been thinking about this for a while, and if they haven't thought about it, then at least this gives them the opportunity to start thinking about what their budget's going to be in the future. And so if they can gather all their expenses for the last year, we know what the marital lifestyle looks like. Then they can start thinking about what the future is going to look like. And I always reiterate this to them. You have to remember that it costs more to cover two households than one. People
Yes.
think that if I had $7,500 of expenses now, I'm going to have the same thing later. And we're like, you have to cut somewhere because it's just not going to work unless you were able to stash a lot of money away during your marriage.
Yeah, that is an amazing point. And also to look at your kids' expenses and your kids' activities, and with so much up in the air, or even just being reasonable through a divorce, like our swim lessons or swim team or,
Exactly.
horseback riding lessons, is all of that accounted for? And that's what you guys are really masters of, stepping back because you're not emotionally involved, like I was during my divorce, and saying, oh my gosh, I love the house and we want to keep the house for the children. Well, guess what, Jen? You can't afford your house. So, have a different approach and just call and get some great advice.
Yes.
Okay,
Exactly.
so I think next time we should dive a little bit deeper into things like alimony and child support. And I know Misty is really willing to get on here with us and flush a lot of this out. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.